Happening tonight, a public hearing is planned tonight in South Hadley as the Select Board considers a flammable storage license for the manufacturing company E-Ink. Western Mass News reporter Kristen Burnell joins us live in studio with more. Kristen?
Mary, that company based out of South Hadley has been in the spotlight over the past year following an explosion that happened at the demolition site of E-Ink in June. Now we're taking a deeper look into the details of the proposed expansion for the site and how it may benefit the town of South Hadley. Video of an explosion captured the attention of people in South Hadley and other surrounding areas as the noise was heard from miles away in June of last year. Western Mass News later learned that it was a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher that exploded at the manufacturing company E-Ink in South Hadley. This all happening at their demolition site seen here in this video. Now the company is back in the spotlight. On Tuesday, the South Hadley Select Board will hold a public hearing to discuss a flammable storage license for the company. Here's what we know about the expansion plans that were announced in 2022. The South Hadley Conservation Commission and Planning Board issued approval for redevelopment of the property on 7 Gaylord Street owned by E-Ink Corporation. According to Colleen Cannon, South Hadley's Planning and Conservation Coordinator, that would include demolition of a 17,500 square foot former mill building, which is currently the admin building, and construction of a bigger manufacturing facility to include a loading dock and ink chemical storage tank farm. Western Mass News took a look at a presentation from E-Ink on the South Hadley town website. The company lists how the approval of this renovated site will benefit the town, those including providing stable jobs to members of the community, stabilization and expansion of the local economic base, and the project would contribute to redevelopment of the mill buildings and South Hadley Falls. Now, we did reach out to members of the Select Board as well as the Planning Board for comment today, but they all denied our request ahead of tonight's public hearing, which is set to begin at 7:30 p.m. We have also learned that a representative from E-Ink will be there to discuss this proposal as well as the request for a flammable storage license. Reporting live in studio, Kristen Burnell, Western Mass News.